Okay, everyone should be inside. Those in Zoom should already be inside. I'm just testing the links on the other platforms. Okay, everything seems to be fine. All right. So with that, we can begin. Hi, my name is Darren Joseph. Welcome to our latest live stream. This is Most Relevant Tax Consultants, or HEJ.tax. So we do this every week, actually. So we have topics tax related that are of interest to our listenership or viewership. And if you want to see what's coming up next, just have a look at our website, HEJ.tax. In addition to that, on our website, we have probably a couple thousand free articles on international tax issues. We also probably have over 1,000 videos on our YouTube channel. You just do a search for HEJ.tax. So this evening, we have the pleasure of listening to and watching a presentation from Mr. Lim. Mr. Lim. So we're going to talk about the importance of estate planning, you know, for those foreigners or expats who reside in beautiful Singapore. So please be advised, however, that nothing we say here should really be construed as tax advice, right? These are considered a general conversation about general principles. For advice that's specific to your needs, you'd probably want to engage a professional and have a detailed conversation with them to see what works for you in your situation. So again, this is not really legal or tax advice. There's no legal or tax advice here. Consider it education or maybe entertainment, depending on how you look at it. So again, thanks for joining us. And without further ado, I turn you over to Mr. Lim. Mr. Lim, the stage is yours.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure. Thank you for hosting this session. Yeah, in fact, Darren, I know him since early or even just before 2000, before the COVID started. And then he was the one that invited me to, or suggested rather, to write books on this topic. So the COVID can become a natural driver for me to write my book. And then indeed we have authored this book. I think you in Darren's website, he has got this book. It's available on Amazon. So if you want more details, because we will not have time to cover all the subject matters, so just very fast, we have only about half an hour to cover what I want to cover, and then we have some time for Q&A. Yeah. So with that, let me share screen. Sorry for the technical glitch. All right. Yeah. So basically, we quickly covered this afternoon's presentation on importance and urgency of estate planning, and briefly mention what is estate planning and type of assets that usually cover in the estate planning. And then a very important issue on domicile issues, especially this session is meant for expats in Singapore. You may be from US, you may be from Europe, but domicile always is a very important issue. So same apply to estate planning. And then type of estate planning instruments available in Singapore. There are some instruments which are similar in other countries. After I'll highlight on that. And then touch on the asset protections solution available in Singapore for your asset in Singapore. And in fact, also include assets overseas if you apply the appropriate solutions. Okay, asset planning is not a one-time planning. Asset planning is basically a lifetime, because our assets holding changes from time to time. Our family situation also grow or change from time to time. Your consideration priority also change from time to time. So that as any of these events change, you need to review your asset planning. So it's not a one-time, but in each material time, you have to look at your situation and what you consider as important, what are in the priorities, and you plan the appropriate instruments, into your asset plan. Now, why is it important? I think there are a few things here I just want to highlight. Number one, the first 4 items, basically the negative aspect that hopefully you have to consider. This negative is against you, that why you should consider the asset planning. The 5th one is really the positive part. What's so good about having the asset plan in place? Yeah. Now, death and loss of mental capacities. These 2 items, these 2 events, nobody can control. But when it happens, it implied loss of these legal capacities. All right. Nobody know when this can happen. It's just like COVID. Maybe a person next to you is a COVID carrier, but you do not know, and then you can be affected. And then if your own immune system is not strong enough, you'll be down by COVID. Yeah, and then if you have this existing medical condition, that may complicate the issue. And then there are so many death cases now across the world. So things the same. Death and loss of mental capacity are real. So once you suffer either one of this, you lose legal capacity. You cannot lease out your house. You cannot sign a check. You cannot transfer your car ownership, things like that. Yeah. So if you do not have asset plan in place, once you lose your legal capacity, what does it mean is you suffer the legal implications, right? Now, with asset planning, that means you have your appointment of a legal representatives, whether it's your executor, whether it's your donee, or whether it's your trustee, you already have appointed, right? And then immediately when the events happen, they can exercise the power they granted to them and carry out your instructions. Yeah. But without, then you have to go through a legal process to apply. For someone from care for you or family member to be your administrator. That's in case of will, or to apply to be your guardian for your younger minor children. And then for loss of mental capacity, different country, become your power attorney, or become in Singapore we call the donee under this lasting power of attorney. Yeah. So that will take few months. That's if the people are willing to come forward to help you. But if no one is willing to come forward, it may take much longer than that. Then the process itself, with asset plan in place, basically once the event strikes you, and then your legal representative straight away can just go and apply and go to the probate or take a few weeks. For lasting power in Singapore, basically immediate. Once you get a medical report, say that I lose mental capacity, my appointed person will have the power to access my bank account to do whatever for the best of my interest, right? If without, that can take a few months or even longer. Now that means also, the other thing also is that with the asset plan already done, you already paid the fee, we appointed a person, they straight come in, there's no bigger fee, almost or very small fee, or administrative fee. Otherwise, the probate process or the process to apply for deputy in case of a loss of mental capacity, that can be 8,000 to 10,000. A friend of mine who suffered a loss of mental capacity 13 years ago. 13 years ago, it cost his son to apply as deputy for him 6,000. That was 13 years ago. Imagine the inflation. Definitely, 13 years, that now easily is more than 10,000 to get the deputyship approved. And then that is about 6 months. Now, for the long delay, now that also lead to other implications, right? Suffering to your family members. Now, assets are frozen because until your legal representative is appointed by court, your assets are frozen. You cannot transfer your car. Your house cannot be leased out. You know, your shares cannot be sold, liquidated, things like that. And they all are frozen. Now, what does it mean? If you have people dependent on you, the cash flow will be affected, right? And then if they're depending on your cash to provide for their daily needs, school fee, children's pocket money, they'll be in trouble, suffering. And then because of that, invariably under this kind of stressful situation, people are all on edge. And then the family member can be quarrels. And then what about your business partner? Your spouse or your children may be arguing with your business partners. What about the value of my daddy or my spouse? Share in the company. We need money. Things like that. And then there'll be issues of dispute, not just within the family, but also with the business partners. Yeah. So really, it leads to souring the relationship. So yeah, so these are the negative part. Now, from the financial aspect, just now we mentioned the legal expenses. If you do not have estate planning, basically the legal costs will be much more expensive beside the time. Yeah. And then just now beside the lose of market opportunity, and then your depreciation of your asset, just like, you want to transfer your car in Singapore, for example, the car owner or his legal representative must be the personally going to sign the application for transfer of ownership from the authority with the authority. And then the car, is a depreciation asset. Similarly, there could be other property, HDB in Singapore, for example, is in fact, those are lease title properties. They, as close as your lease period becomes shorter, the value becomes lesser. So depreciation is your machinery, your factory, the same. You depreciate. So this is a serious thing if you do not have proper estate planning. Missed market opportunity, just as I mentioned, the share, because the market up and down. And then if you for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, by the time you say, yes, I need the cash, you have missed opportunity. And in the worst case, some of the situation, because your family needs the cash flow, and then your for sale, your property, or anything under for sale, we know you wouldn't get the value that is used to expect. So all these lead to really significant financial losses. Now, what is good about peace of mind? Because if I have a estate plan done by will, my LPA, my trust, if I need to, and whatever other instruments, my wishes can be done because it's all written very clearly. It's a legal documents, and whoever you appointed as your legal representative, you have to comply by law your instructions. So there's no argument because everything is straightforward. The bank will just allow your legal representative to access your assets and then do whatever you instructed him. So very, very quickly things can be done, and then your loved ones will be provided for, will be cared for, right? And then in this case also directly you reduce suffering to your family members, and then also avoid some kind of squabble among the family, friends, or family members, or your family member with your business partners. And then of course, just now mentioned about those financial losses can be avoided. Okay, quickly, typically when we consider estate planning, because of the type of asset, they need different consideration, or in fact, I would say that different challenges. Business entities, and then the real property, these two are more challenging because every country, they have laws or regulation governing ownership, governing transfer of these owners, even company share. If you, like for example, I have a friend who has his wife is Filipino, right? Then the property in Philippines, if you are not Filipinos, there's no way you can inherit, and then different things like that. So these business entities, whether it's in Singapore, whether overseas, and then same as property, yeah. So if you're talking about expat in Singapore, if you have this property in Singapore, these are subject to Singapore rules, yeah. And then personal variable collectibles, insurance policies, and then others are liquid assets. And then I think in the last 2 or 3 years, they are start talking about another class of asset, digital assets. And then the most recent one is NFT, non-fungible tokens. You don't see, you don't touch it, everything on the screen, but it is value, yeah. So I mean, this new class of asset can be quite challenging, as to who can access to this digital account or cryptocurrency account, yeah, NFT items. Where do you keep it? How do you value it? Okay, then domicile issues. Now, domiciles is different from nationality or citizenship. Is different from tax residence. Is different from this so-called habitual residence. Now, I just quickly highlight these few things, which all are quite tax related. But I think if you have a specific question on this, I think you can ask Darren, who is expert in this matters, not just in Singapore tax rules or regulation. I think it's cross-border as well, because I think if you expect you probably you have to consider tax duties, obligations in the different jurisdictions. Yeah. So, and tax and duties, and of course, because of your domiciles, there'll be different resident benefits. I read up, some of these, like US. Although you can be US citizen, but you are staying in different states. So your different states, domicile, your domiciles in different states may have different benefits, tax benefit, tax and healthcare benefit, for example. Yeah, even properties, ownerships. Yeah. Okay. Then just now the company share, related to business and then real properties. Now every country, take note, every country have the specific rules. Yeah, the governing, the ownership, governing transfer, governing gift or inheritance. Yeah, transfer of ownership. So be careful of this that are related to domiciles. You'll be very careful. This you have to probably check with your embassy, or you have to ask some experts, about your domicile, because that's very relevant on tax and as well as estate planning issues. Now, type of estate planning instrument available in Singapore. I can just quickly, lasting power of attorney, that's under the Mental Capacity Act. Some country, like in Australia, they call it durable power of attorney, or in Malaysia, they call it general power of attorney. In some other country, either it's durable or general power of attorney. Different country name it different. Basically, is instrument that I can give instructions, appoint legal representative to attend to my affair should I lose mental capacities. Yeah, in Singapore, we follow the UK Mental Capacity Act, so we call it lasting power of attorney. Now, wills, you know what is will? Now, I put a bracket S because you may need to consider different wills in different countries, especially there are reason to have multiple wills, But in every jurisdiction, I understand, it's just like in Singapore. In Singapore, you can have only one Singapore will. You cannot have multiple Singapore wills. Yeah, because each jurisdiction you can have only one. Yeah, the reason you need more than one will is if your asset in that particular jurisdiction, for example, I have many properties in Australia. In order to expedite speedily, instead of reseal, my will in Singapore, sequential, it takes a long time. So I need to probate the assets in different countries concurrently upon my death. Then you need to have multiple wills, especially if the asset in the country concerned is significant. Yeah, the same as trust. Trust is basically about different purpose, could be objective, and after we just could be like different for type of trust, asset for asset protection, or for family, or for business purpose, share transfer, so different trust, or for charity for that matter. So each trust have a specific purpose, specific group of beneficiaries. So you may need more than one trust. Yeah, CPF nomination in Singapore, we have this CPF. I think in US or in different country, you have some kind of fund that by law you have to to deposit money or contribute things like that. In Malaysia, got EPF, in Singapore, CPF. Different countries have different this kind of fund. So CPF nomination basically is how for the CPF money in Singapore. CPF money cannot be distributed by will. You cannot distribute your CPF money when you die by nomination, and it's a different regulation. Same for insurance nominations. Now, insurance nomination in Singapore, basically, if you have a policy in Singapore, life insurance policy, you can do insurance nomination for that particular policy. One nomination is for one policy. So if you have two policy, three policy that you think that you want to decide your specific beneficiaries, then each of these policy you have to do separate insurance nominations. Yeah. And then advanced medical directive, this is in Singapore. Basically, if you are in Singapore and then you under the condition you are terminally ill and there's no cure, and then you're unconscious and you're on life support system. The long term they call is this extraordinary life sustaining treatment system. When you are on that system, then who decide for you? Now, if I make an AMD, basically is now unconscious. If I'm under the condition, the three conditions I mentioned, I will say that please pull up, because it's costly, and then also is lead to much this traumatic emotional suffering to your family member, whoever need to make that decision. And then special need trust, if a special needs, but maybe this is not applicable to you, because special need trust in Singapore, they have some restriction. Only for Singaporean or Singapore permanent residents reside in Singapore. So if you are expat, but you have a Singapore PR status, and then your dependents is staying in Singapore, this is applicable. Only that condition is applicable. Okay, now we quickly, I hope I can finish in half an hour all this. Yeah. Okay. Now, CPF account. If you work in Singapore, not on contract, but is employment in Singapore before, everyone who employed in Singapore, whether Singaporean or otherwise, you are required to contribute, to have a CPF account and contribute. Your employer and yourself as an employee have to contribute to CPF, and then that money is kept with the CPF board, and then you have this CPF account, ordinary account, special account, MediSave account. That is your money. but you cannot touch it, except a few exceptions that the regulation allows. Now, good thing is CPF money is protected from creditors, from liabilities. However, I must carry out, you nominate to whoever beneficiary. Once you nominate and give to your beneficiary, then that is not protected, because depend on who your beneficiaries are. If he or she is bankrupt, or have liability, whatever money, CPF money you distribute to him or her will be subject to his own liability, but is protected against your own liability. So that is default, is protected. Yeah. So before you take out your CPF money, bear this in mind, it is protected by Singapore government. Trust nomination insurance policies. Yeah, just now I mentioned about insurance nomination. There are two types of insurance nomination scheme in Singapore. One is called revocable. Revocable, that means anytime you can make changes, right? Those is no protection. Yeah, but if the other one is called trust nomination, is also sometimes they term it called irrevocable, that you cannot change. And then also need to subject to a few other things. You cannot be beneficiaries. And then also there's a clawback period of 5 years, because nobody know that I'm going to plan that 5 years time I'm going to be bankrupt. So I put this policy about 5 million, and then set up a trust nomination. And nobody do that. So within 5 years of you setting up this trust nomination of that particular policy, let's say a universal life policy of 5 million, yeah, you're aware of these three conditions. Yeah, it has to be trust nomination, you cannot be beneficiaries, and is subject to 5 years clawback period. After these 5 years, nobody can touch your money except your beneficiaries. So that's how you can protect your assets. Then, of course, Singapore trust laws in the last few years, they allow this asset protection trust. Yeah, and then qualifying foreign trust subject to various requirements or conditions. Yeah, absolute property trust. Singapore property is very expensive. In fact, it's very sad to say Singapore is the second most expensive city in the world today. Different from 20 years ago, that Singapore is shopping paradise. All the European and Americans, come and spend the money in Singapore. But now it's quite different. So same, our property is very expensive in Singapore. And then, you can start the absolute property trust for your child, for example, but he might be a minor now, but you can buy a property. Since you got cash now, you can use the cash to pay for this property and then set up this absolute property trust for the benefit of your son, ABC, until he or is 25, and then, transfer the title to him. So that is another way of protecting your trust, because once you put into this one, it's no more yours. The legal ownership is with the trustee until the vesting time that your beneficiary, your child, for example, reach the vesting age, and then he will become, it's his property, not yours. Yeah, that's how you can protect. And then the other one for businessmen, with a multiple type of assets. At the moment I'm handling, helping two different clients to set up this thing. You got business, and assets, but you want to keep it for a long time. So private property trust company basically is a private trust company, but don't require a trust company license. Unlike the company I'm working with, is a licensed trustee company licensed by MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore. This, under the law, private trust company is a trust company, but specifically set up is provide trust service for your own company, for your own assets. So under this, you set up this trust company, and then your underlying asset, your business or your property, you can, transfer into this trust under the private trust company. And then it is no more yours, and hence it can be protected. Okay, yeah, I think this just quickly give an overview how your asset can be protected under the Singapore jurisdictions. Maybe now we can open for questions.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. I really appreciate it. So what I'll do before we jump in, I just want to, just comment on what Mr. Lim said at the beginning. Yes, we did author a book, which is available on Amazon. And what we can do today, but this one isn't for expats in general, but for American expats in particular. So we look at it from both the US side and from the Singapore side. If you are viewing this today and you contact me through the website, I'll be happy to give you a copy free of charge. So we can give you a PDF copy, a Kindle copy, or an audible copy. So there's an audible version of it as well. So just kind of throwing that in there. So back to the Q&A. Now, some of you did send some questions in advance. Thanks for doing that. If you want to ask if you on Zoom and you want to ask questions, you can just type in the box below. And similarly, if you're on Facebook or LinkedIn, you can just type below and we'll get to them in the order in which I see them, right? So the first one is a question about stamp duty. So upon someone's passing, is stamp duty applicable? Like, how does it work on Singapore Citus real estate?
For real property, immovable property, particularly residential property, transfer of this property on death is no estate duty, is free.
Right.
Okay. Not even stamp duty.
Not even stamp duty. Okay, that's great. And it's regardless of who the recipient is, whether it's a child or a friend or a spouse, doesn't matter.
Any person. If you have, you can transfer to me. I will be happy to receive it.
Okay. All right. That's great news for the person that's asking about that. Oh, that's a bit morbid. So,
but only transfer one time. Transfer one time. I have some clients, they set up a trust, but we have to advise them, of course. You can transfer on death, on death, I transfer this to the trust and then hold on trust for benefit of so and so, so and so, so and so. And then after 20 years, then you transfer from the trust to a person. That is not free. That is not free. It's only on testamentary trust. You stated in your will that this will be how. That's only in will. Then there's free for this testamentary beneficiaries. Let's say my child is 18 years old, so he's not qualified, legally not allowed to own. Then I said, that if I die, if my child is below 21, then this is property to be held on trust by my executor trustee until he's 21, then transfer to him. So this is different from the set up a specific property trust or a different trust that transfer of title. And so there's a slightly different testamentary trust, hold on trust for the beneficiary that is allowed, and there's no additional no fee until your child receive the title.
Okay, understood. But otherwise, it's just one time only, one transfer.
Yes,
only.
Basically one time free transfer.
Okay, fantastic. That's good news. Thank you. I know my understanding, of course, and you confirmed that there's no inheritance tax in Singapore at this point in time. It was
not yet.
Well, that was a question actually. So you foresaw the question. So I guess the person is asking you, what is your sense? Do you think that it will return? No one's going to hold you to it. We just get in your perspective.
Okay, caveat. I can only say my personal opinion. Yeah, my view is, I think in 2008, Singapore government abolished this inheritance tax or estate duty in Singapore. The primary reason, I think, number one is the inheritance tax is in the total tax revenue of the Singapore is very small portion. And Singapore government look at Malaysia, look at Hong Kong and many other jurisdictions that don't have estate duty. And Singapore want to be the financial center in Asia here. So really, we want people, I don't want to quote names, they were quite a few Americans, very wealthy people, they give up their citizenship, come to Singapore. So, they don't have to pay 40% tax, right?
Right. Okay.
So, yes. And I think that's why in the last month, the parliamentary debate on so-called the wealth tax, government is very concerned, very careful. There are certain things we need to look at how to balance the tax. But I think as far as estate duty is concerned, the answer is quite clear. It's going to be counterproductive. So I think the government will receive that.
Okay, that's great. And as you mentioned, wealth tax as well. So similarly with the wealth tax, it's unlikely. Is that correct?
No, the wealth tax, in Singapore, there are a few things. Okay, I think a bungalow is, they're going to impose more property tax.
Right.
Double, and depend on the value of the property. Car tax, for example, you have a luxury car. Since you can afford a luxury car, I'm going to tax you more. And then very clear, So, I mean, something that is very straightforward, and then they make it this one. Yeah. So these are two of the few things that this called a wealth tax differential. If you can afford, you pay.
Okay. Understood. Thanks for clarifying that. So next question, the probate process. Typically, I guess I know it depends on the nature of the assets and stuff like that. But typically, how long does the probate process take in Singapore?
With will, valid will, subject to no contest. Now, all these caveats, our Mr. Lee, the will is a lot contested. Once you contest, you have the best written will still can be contested. Subject to no contest, the probate within 3 weeks. My mother, I was the executor for my mother's father. Within 3 weeks, my lawyer did it. But so that is typical. I would say within 1 month. It would depend on how burden is the court, because court is always many cases to handle. But typically, family court for will probate, I think 3 to 4 weeks, it should get the order clear. Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. So within a month, that's
within a month.
Fantastic. Very efficient. Very efficient.
Because of that, I think because in estate planning, always you need to think about a cash flow. So knowing this, that make sure they got a bank account that is either joint bank account or your family member have a bank account that have sufficient cash that can last 1 month. I mean, this is reality. Otherwise, suddenly you wait for the probate process. Nobody can touch your bank account money. Exactly. Then everybody is suffer. So I think but anyway, in financial planning, we always tell our clients, make sure that you have emergency cash of 6 months, 1 year, and not just in personal name, because you pass away. So spread out to your spouse.
Sure.
So always someone that can have access to the emergency cash.
Okay, so I'd actually like to ask a question based on that. In terms of that liquidity piece, suppose the family is short of cash. Do you actually need an attorney? Like I know in some jurisdictions, the probate process, you really need a lawyer. Or can the family walk through the probate process on their own without needing to hire a professional?
Depend on the family situation. In Singapore, they have the Law Society, they have a group of lawyer doing service pro bono helps. But anyway, is the probate process is usually is not expensive. Like my case, of course, I know this lawyer. But typically, probate, a straightforward, no contest will, the probate probably between 2,005 to 3,005. And then also the lawyer, usually that I know, they are not asking you to pay cash upfront. Basically, complete your service. Because you can't run away. You engage me for service, and then I bill you, and then usually is after the event, especially after passing of a person or funeral issue, many other things. I mean, the lawyer who is, should be customer centric, right? I think in service industry is customer centric. Knowing the difficult situation, don't press on cash. You don't pay, I don't serve. I think the lawyers in Singapore are quite reasonable. So they will bill you.
Very reasonable. Yeah.
And then typically that I know of quite a few cases of my friends, basically a family member, someone will pay first, and then subsequently, claim back from the estate of the deceased. I mean, this is really the practical way.
Okay, that's good to know, because I know in some of the jurisdictions, the lawyer won't pick up their pen unless there's a retainer. You need to put a retainer, before they do anything. So this is good to know. I just saw a new question pop up below from Mr. Tajeri. So today, Roman Abramovich was sanctioned by the UK government. How can a business person protect their assets in Singapore in a situation like that if another government is sanctioning their assets? That sounds a bit political.
Change of government in Singapore?
No, so I guess in this case, the person that they mentioned is a so-called Russian oligarch. And so in the UK, there was a court judgment that sanctioned this oligarch's assets. Now, let's assume that the oligarch may have assets in Singapore. Is there any way of a situation like that protecting the assets in Singapore when another government may want to sanction or freeze it or something like that? It's an unusual scenario, but hey.
Okay, I answered in two situations. Number one is no estate planning done beforehand. That is very clear. I think Singapore make the stand. Singapore has support the sanctions of even the four Russian bank in Singapore is already affected. So that's very clear. But and that is why the important estate planning is you have to do it beforehand. If you are a businessman and you think you want to protect your assets, the instruments are available. The rules are allowed you to do a proper estate planning. But of course, today we don't have time to go into detail how you do it. But there are ways. Earlier I mentioned, the five category of assets. Business, real property. Somehow you can include in your estate planning before. Because estate planning, if you don't have estate planning, the rule come, the law change. If you are on this side of the line, you are not protected. But you are this side of the line, you are no longer the owner. Estate planning, basically, you pre-plan that certain asset for protection. You already transferred your legal title. But you still can control, your investment, and so you still can control. Because in trust, you can retain control of the trust assets, but you are not the owner. So the law is very clear. And in Singapore, is quite law neutral in that sense. As long as within the law, yes, you are protected.
Okay, so Mr. Tajeri said thank you, so that answers your question. So the point is, the takeaway, if I were to summarize, the takeaway here is really to be proactive. If you're proactive in engaging an estate planning professional like yourself, Mr. Lim, you can put measures in place to protect assets from any unforeseen circumstances that might occur to yourself, or change in politics wherever you may be or wherever you may be exposed. So it's about being proactive. Okay.
Maybe I just share a little bit on this thing. A company, for example, I'm dealing with a friend now. Now he owns company in country. I don't mention a country outside Singapore, but he can set up a holding company in Singapore to hold this overseas company, and then put in a private trust company so that he can decide the distribution of benefits for his family members, or even he can do charities. And there's two things. under property private trust company, the assets underlying and the beneficiaries must be a related person or charity purpose. Only these two things. Yeah. Okay. So there are certain rules like this. So you can set up, even if you have foreign assets, include properties and overseas, you can structure a company to hold a property, but the holding, shareholder is a Singapore holding company.
Right, which will be protected by Singapore's laws,
yes.
which are very protective. Okay, fantastic. That's good to know. Okay, another question that we got is about Singapore wills. So, of course, there's the option of registering a will in Singapore. Do you advise that all wills be registered? Like, what are the pros and cons of that registration process?
Don't caveat again. Otherwise, the Singapore Law Society may knock me. Okay, this will registrar in Singapore now is under the Singapore Law Academy. They are managing this will register. All right. Now, when this will register basically only capture 4 things. Lim Jui Sek I'm the settler. I make this will on what day, what date. Because every will must be dated latest will. Written by law company or written by will company ABC. And then where is this will now? Kept at my home or I kept at in a DBS bank securities? Only these 4 information, not the will itself, right? Okay, and then what is the purpose of this information of will register? Basically, in case of any contest, is this the last will? But my question is, next year I write a will, I forgot to register. Now, which is my latest will? To me is white elephant. And then don't forget, every deposit $50. And you want to search another $20. A family member want to search whether I got a will there. It will cost money. So to me is, first of all, there's no guarantee whatever information registered down there is the latest will that I have.
Right. Okay.
And then every replacement, every re-registration is always cost money. So to me, it doesn't fit the purpose. More important thing to me in my practice, or always advisement, is where do you keep your will? I think there are company that is offering this will custody service, lifetime will custodies, and they got property arrangement that your executor or your family member can, with a proper authorization or receive an authorization card, they can retrieve the will. And then these are waterproof, these are theft proof, and fireproof, and you name it. And why are you going to register? Sorry, but yes, there's such a register. But to me, I personally, I don't do that.
Okay, so the pros and cons did, but so I guess everyone needs to come up with their own point of view, and it'll be helpful if they consult someone like yourself who kind of understands the nuances of it, and to help make that decision. Okay. Gotcha. Okay, I have another question about trust. So someone is saying that there's this perception that trusts are for people who are very, very wealthy, like a billionaire or whatever. So at what stage in someone's wealth accumulation journey should they consider a trust? Like what value of assets, what net worth should someone have? And then say, you know what, maybe I should consider putting a trust in place because it makes sense given my existing nest egg. Can you speak to that?
Okay, as a estate planning and succession practitioner, we are providing estate planning solution. So that's one class. The bank don't like me because bank, they need people to sell trust with them. However, bank has got a caveat. You can ask any private bank in Singapore, you must have 5 million US investable asset, not property, not business share, liquid assets. And I will make your money work harder for you. So I can trade share, I can buy gold, a currency, so I can help you to make money. But of course, in the process, they make money. And that is a condition 5 million and above for typically for these so-called trust that the banks or private banker want to do. Anything less than that to them is not meaningful. First of all is the annual fee. I mean, you put the asset with them, they charge you a fee about 10, 20,000. Usually it's, this is a minimum fee. Do nothing. But from estate planning point of view, for example, you may not have heard of this term. We call it standby trust. It is a legal trust, but it's on standby dormant mode. But your plan is your thinking, the scenario you put in a letter of wishes in the standby trust. Is there anytime I lose mental capacity, anytime I become totally disabled, or anytime when I pass away, this activated. And then you can put your business inside there, you can put your property inside there. Of course, your investment account, when the time comes, they can transfer into this trust. So, and there's no annual fee until it's activated. Whereas you set up a private banker trust, first of all is, just how I mentioned, minimum is, if you less than that, they are not even want to talk to you. And then every year, they are charging you 10, 20,000 per annum, and you are healthy, you know what to do, yet you're paying for what? And then, so I think I always, from estate planning point of view, your asset investment, make your money 100 is a totally different issue from estate planning. So bankers don't like me.
Okay. Okay, so 5 million with the usual Singapore private banks, but under some circumstances, maybe a standby trust would be an appropriate vehicle, because I guess it's a smoother succession process in terms of you get to avoid probate, and it's easier for your relatives. But what is the cost of setting up something like that for someone of lesser means, that they don't have 5 million, they're below that threshold? What is the setup cost of that?
That in fact, I have myself. I have less than 5 million. There's nothing to hide. I have set up my family standby trust. I have many clients who less than this, 1, 2 million or less, and that's okay, because when activated, our annual fee is only 0.5% to 0.2%, depend on your asset under management. Up to 1 million is 0.5. You put a fixed deposit in Singapore, 1 million put in fixed deposit is 1%. You got, we are only charging you a fee of 0.5%. And then if you got 10 million, is 0.2%. So even you put a fixed deposit in Singapore, even today at a low interest rate, of course, I think I'm happy to know that the interest is going up. But even in today's low interest rate, you put fixed deposit, put 10 million, you're going to get 1 to 1.25% per annum. We are charging 0.2, but the banker is different.
Okay, so this is
so I'm saying that for estate planning purpose, as myself or the company I'm working with, we are providing estate planning solutions. So to me, if you have a need, then the solution is there.
Okay, so just to make sure we get the point. So it's 0.2% of the assets under management, but would it be at the point when the person passes, or from the time the
activated?
Activated, okay.
Because you can, in the standby trust, you can indicate when. Particularly, let's say I have a couple, both are professional. They have a joint standby trust. So as long as one of them is healthy with someone, no activation. It's only when both lose mental capacity, or both pass away, or both suffer, they cannot manage. That all these things you can state all the scenario in the letter of wishes in the standby trust, and you decide when to activate. Before activation, there technically no cost.
Understood. Okay. Fantastic. I understood. I hope the person that posed the question is satisfied. Yep. Okay, fine. All right. Another question, and it's probably going to be the last thing that we press for time, is the CPF, because obviously a lot of foreigners are, I think it's a privilege to be made a permanent resident of Singapore. So they've enjoyed that privilege and they get to invest in the CPF fund. So how does it work upon their passing? What are the normal rules of succession for a CPF fund?
Okay, upon passing, just how I mentioned, there's the rule under the CPF Act is called CPF nomination. The government encourage every CPF member to do their CPF nomination, because with your CPF nomination, it's stated who are your beneficiary, and then I personally, because my dad, my mom all passed away, so I can tell you firsthand. Within 1 week, I get the money. Yeah, they even notify you, hey, this person passed away. You are the nominee. You know that you got this amount of money. We're going to send a check to you.
Okay,
that's it.
So they get the check, or does it get sent to perhaps their CPF?
Oh, no. This one check is under the CPF nomination. Default is cash.
Right. Okay. Understood.
Unless you as a member, you have there are different nominations, into the CPF savings scheme or special need savings scheme. For special need person, that's a different thing. Otherwise, the standard default nomination, the beneficiary will receive in cash or check, either check or cash if you have got a bank. But nowadays, government also encourage those cashless. So basically, you just state your bank account and then they will transfer to your bank. Yeah, okay. But on the CPF nomination, I think this is something I just need to highlight here. Basically, I'm not too sure any of this audience here are non-Singaporean. Now, if you have a CPF account, be very careful. The CPF money, is meant for retirement purpose. So whether you're Singaporean or otherwise, basically until 65, basically government keep this money for you. 65, you start paying out under the standard CPF retirement sum scheme. However, our neighbor upstairs, many of them come to work in Singapore, and then their CPF money is held in Singapore. So it becomes a political issue. Government say, you can take, but condition, you can take out every cent from your CPF account, but you can never come to work in Singapore anymore, except as a tourist.
Right. Okay.
So that's a caveat. But otherwise, the money is until you die.
Right. Okay. So in that scenario where someone's parents die and they themselves, they're still working age at 25, 26, and they have been nominated by their parents. So they get a check.
They get receiving a check in cash. Basically, it's cash payment to the beneficiary. Yes.
Okay.
There's no issue. Within 3 days to 1 week, the money is out. In fact, we are very happy about this. They are very fast.
Okay, that's good to know. And it seems as if that's all the questions that we have for today. And we appreciate you sparing your time and sharing your wealth of expertise on the issues around estate planning here in Singapore. And so I'm just looking at the other platforms. No more questions. If someone wanted to find you, Mr. Lim, what's the best way of reaching you?
Maybe I just share this thing down here.
Yeah. Okay, so
can you see this?
Yep.
Yeah, either my phone number or sorry, what did I do?
I think you click. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. So your email address, so for those who are listening, is Duiseklim. So that's JUISECKLIM@gmail.com. That's JUISECKLIM@gmail.com. And his number is +65 for Singapore, which everybody in Singapore should know. 9620-8336. That's 9620-8336. Mr. Lim, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for hosting this.
And we'll see you next time. Have a good evening.
Sure. God bless.
Bye-bye. All right, stop recording.